It's interesting, isn't it, how for women over 65, finding yourself living alone can be such a mix of emotions.
It really is. It's a whole new chapter.
Exciting, but maybe a little daunting too, for some.
Oh, absolutely. Especially after years of, caring for others, family, career.
Suddenly, it's just you.
Yeah.
So today, we're looking at this great blog post by Susan Williams.
Ah, yeah.
Her blog's called Time for Tranquility. She's been there, felt all those feelings, and now she's sharing what she's learned.
About finding that peace, that happiness, even when you're living alone, which isn't always easy.
Right, and she's very honest about the tough parts.
She went through a lot, especially during the pandemic, but that's what makes her so relatable.
But what I like is she doesn't dwell on the negative. She's all about this being a chance for, rediscovering yourself.
Totally. It's like you get to define what happiness means for you. No more expectations from everyone else.
One thing she talks about is being lonely versus just being alone.
Huge difference.
Yeah, she really makes that distinction.
Because you can be surrounded by people and still feel lonely.
Exactly. It's like she says, you could be in a crowded city.
And feel totally isolated.
Yeah, totally. So it's not about where you are. It's like an internal thing.
Your mindset. And that's what Susan wants to help women shift. To see being alone as this opportunity.
To get back in touch with yourself, your passions, or maybe find new ones.
Exactly. It's your time.
It made me think of embracing the quiet,
Yeah.
embracing yourself. Which leads to another thing she talks about, the power of solitude and silence.
In our world today, silence can be hard to find. There's always something going on.
Noise, information, everything coming at you.
Constantly. But Susan says, don't be afraid of that quiet. It's a tool.
To figure yourself out, to grow.
She gives the example of, meditating in a group.
Oh, interesting.
Even then, you're turning inward. It's still solitude, even with others around.
That makes sense.
Oh,
It's
okay.
about finding that stillness no matter where you are.
It reminded me of mindfulness, actually, that whole practice of being present.
Oh, totally. And then Susan gives 11 actual tips for finding happiness while you're living alone.
Like a roadmap.
Yeah, a guide for how to make the most of this new phase of your life.
And it's not about following them perfectly, it's about seeing what works for you. Experimenting.
The first one, embrace solitude with gratitude. That really hit me. It's so easy to focus on what's missing.
Instead, what you have.
But Susan's saying, start your day by appreciating, the little things.
A cup of coffee, the sunshine, even just breathing.
It's about setting the tone, right?
Yeah.
Starting off positive.
It really does make a difference. And that leads into another great tip she has, which is creating a routine.
Oh, yeah, that one stood out to me too. Having a routine can be so helpful, especially when so much else feels, up in the air.
Like you've lost your anchors a bit. But a routine isn't about being rigid.
It's more like giving your day a good flow.
Exactly. Something that feels right for you. Maybe start with coffee and a walk, then spend time on a hobby. Whatever brings you joy.
And it can change too, as you change.
The key is to be flexible and adapt.
I love that. It's all about being in tune with yourself, honoring your needs. And speaking of honoring yourself, Susan's also big on mindfulness and meditation.
Oh, that's a cornerstone of her philosophy, especially if you're feeling anxious about, anything.
She talks about it as finding that inner peace, quieting all those thoughts swirling around.
And you don't need to be a meditation guru. Even a few minutes a day, focusing on your breath can help so much.
There are those apps now too, right?
Tons of them, guided meditations, so it's really easy to get started.
It doesn't have to be intimidating.
Not at all. And the benefits, they go way beyond just relaxation.
Focus, sleep, even managing your emotions better.
It really can improve so many aspects of your life.
I love how Susan takes this holistic view. It's not just one thing, it's all these pieces working together. Like when she talks about physical activity.
Oh yeah, staying active is so crucial. And you don't have to be training for a marathon.
She talks about walking, yoga, even just stretching, things that feel good, no matter your fitness level.
Exactly. The important thing is to move your body in a way you enjoy.
And it could be as simple as a walk in nature, which she also talks about a lot.
Ah, yes. Nature's healing power. Susan's a big believer in that.
Joining hiking groups, bird watching, or just being in green spaces.
Such a great way to get those benefits of activity and nature's calming effect. It's good for your mind, body, soul.
And it can be social too,
Yeah.
if you join a group or something.
Which brings us to another one of Susan's key points, nurturing those social connections.
Because it's so easy to isolate yourself, especially when you're living alone.
and maybe feeling down or unsure about what's next. But connection is so important for us as humans.
She talks about staying close to family and friends, of course, but also making new connections.
Maybe finding women with similar interests, forming a little club even.
I love that idea. Having that sense of community can make such a difference.
Especially when things are changing so much. It's like building a new support system.
And you know what else? Something as simple as pampering yourself can really boost your mood.
Ah, yes, Susan talks about that too. Self-care is so important.
It's about treating yourself with kindness
Getting a haircut, a nice bath, whatever makes you feel good.
because you deserve it.
Exactly. Self-care isn't selfish, it's essential. And Susan also talks about having a spiritual practice.
Oh, right. That can be so grounding too.
Whether it's prayer, meditation, or just being out in nature, connecting with something bigger than yourself.
Finding that sense of purpose, that meaning.
And you know what's great about all Susan's tips? They're not a checklist. It's more like they all work together.
It's about creating this whole lifestyle, a way of being that just feels right for you.
It's not about checking boxes. It's about living a life you love and realizing you can find happiness even when you're living alone.
Absolutely. And she's got some more great thoughts on like personal growth and that kind of thing. I think we should talk about those next.
I'd love to. It's so inspiring how she encourages women to keep growing no matter what. It's like she's saying, don't just sit back and let life happen. You can still shape things.
Even at this age.
Exactly. You're not done growing just because, you've hit retirement age or whatever.
And she's got those concrete examples like learning new skills, which is so interesting because it ties into purpose.
Right. Think about it. You've spent years, maybe decades, focused on work, kids, all those responsibilities.
And now it's like you've got this space to finally do something for you, something you've always wanted to do.
Learn a language, take up photography, I don't know, write that novel you've always dreamed of.
Never too late. No.
Never. And there's this idea that it's harder to learn things as you get older, but honestly, our brains are amazing.
They can still adapt, even later in life.
Absolutely. So it's not just about keeping busy, it's about, staying mentally sharp, engaged with the world.
Which is exactly what Susan's all about, lifelong learning.
Keeping that curiosity alive. Because it makes life more interesting, right? It keeps you from feeling, stuck.
Like things are just winding down.
Yeah, it's the opposite of that. It's about embracing the adventure of it all.
And you know what else she talks about that I thought was important? Accepting yourself, being kind to yourself, that whole self-compassion thing.
Oh, so important. Especially because I think a lot of women, as they get older, they start looking back and maybe, second-guessing things.
I shoulda, coulda, wouldas.
Exactly. Dwelling on what they see as mistakes or missed opportunities. But Susan's like, hey, we all make mistakes.
We're human. And those experiences, they've made us who we are.
And there's no one right way to have lived your life.
It's about letting go of that judgment, both towards yourself and others.
Be curious about yourself instead of critical.
I love that. And it ties into what she says about finding joy and purpose. It's like, figure out what your values are, what matters to you.
What makes you feel truly alive? And she has this great quote, happiness is not something ready-made. It comes from your own actions.
It's so true. It's empowering. We can choose happiness.
It's not about waiting for something to happen. It's about, taking action, making choices that are right for you.
And sometimes that means just being quiet.
Taking some time for yourself to think, to process things. Those moments are important.
Like what we were saying before about those gratitude rituals.
Oh, right. Like saying grace or praying before bed.
Simple things, but they can make a difference.
It's about appreciating what you have instead of focusing on what's missing. And it's amazing how that can shift your whole perspective.
Another thing I loved was her suggestion about forming a little group with other women like you.
Your intimate club idea. Yeah, that's great.
Because when you're living alone, it's easy to feel isolated.
So this is like creating your own little community.
Meeting for coffee, going to the farmer's market, whatever you enjoy. It's about sharing, supporting each other.
And you don't have to wait for someone else to do it. You can take the initiative. Reach out to people.
Be proactive.
Exactly. You have the power to build those connections, to create a life that feels, full and vibrant.
As we're talking, it's striking me how all of Susan's tips, they have this common theme.
They do, don't they? It's subtle, but it's definitely there. What are you thinking of?
It's all about empowerment, like taking charge, not being passive.
Oh, totally. It's like she's giving you permission to create the life you want on your terms.
And it can feel really good, especially when so much else in life, maybe you don't have as much control over as you used to.
Especially at this stage of life, there can be a lot of changes, things you can't predict. But how you respond to those changes, that's up to you.
It's inspiring, like no matter what, you can still find joy, find fulfillment.
Exactly, and she gives you the tools to do that.
Yeah.
All those tips, whether it's solitude, passions, relationships, it's all about taking action.
Right, it's not just waiting around for things to happen, it's making them happen.
And it's never too late. Seriously, no matter what your age, you can always make changes, shift your mindset, try new things.
I love that. I think it'd be good if our listener, maybe they could think about which of Susan's tips really spoke to them.
Yeah, pick one that really resonated, because it can be overwhelming, right? When you've got like 11 things to try. But just focus on one for now.
Make it manageable. So maybe this week, you try that gratitude practice each morning. Or maybe you carve out time for a walk in nature.
Small steps, but they can build up over time.
And for anyone who wants more, we'll link to Susan's blog, Time for Tranquility, in the show notes.
Definitely, it's worth checking out. So much good stuff in there.
What I'm taking away from all this is happiness is a choice.
Yeah.
Even when you're living alone.
It really is. It's about focusing on what you can control, what brings you joy.
And remembering you're not alone in this.
There are so many women out there going through similar things, figuring it out as they go. And you can connect with them, support each other.
Absolutely. So to wrap up, I want to leave you with one of Susan's quotes. She says, "Happiness is not a destination. It's a way of traveling."
Beautiful.
So as you go about your week, remember that it's the journey that matters. Enjoy it.
No.